Matimba, good morning. Welcome to my channel. It's a bright but quite cold morning here in Ardnamurchan, and I thought I would chat to you about how to become a Druid. Maybe you already are. We shall see. But come with me. We'll go up into the woods and we'll sit together and talk. So this is certainly one of my favourite spots out in the woods. It's not far from home, it's just a short walk, but it's got a remarkable atmosphere here. And that's part of what is being a Druid about. It's about being sensitive. But the reason why it's got a remarkable atmosphere is if I just turn the gimbal behind me, just here, this is a Bronze Age tomb. That's what we are advised by the archaeologists. And out of it grows this huge oak tree that has cracked the capstone, which you can see just up there. So it has a sense of age about it. Just behind me, you'll see there's that tree that's many years ago fallen over. We're down from there, there's an old wall. Well, that's probably certainly no later probably than the 18th century. So this area was managed probably for stock or for cultivation at some time, but it would have been very rudimentary and patchy. I always think it's helpful to talk about what Druidry isn't. Firstly, it's not a dogmatic spirituality. It's a spirituality that is very open to people's own interpretation. It doesn't require you to actually have anything. You don't have to have robes. You don't have to have a staff. You don't have to have a wand. You certainly don't have to have a grey beard and long white hair like I've got, or wear decorative hats. It's not about what you have, it's about who you are and how you relate. When I met my wife, which was in 2011, she was already part of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, and she was doing her studies. Now, she was already part of a Druid grove. It was run by a really nice chap. And when we decided to have what is a hand fasting, which is a pagan wedding, we asked Paul if he would be kind enough to be our celebrant. And I'd only been a member of the order probably 3 months, so I was very much just sort of starting to feel my way into the Druid way of life, or as I thought it was. And we met with Paul, and Paul sort of helped us formulate our ceremony for the hand fasting. And at the end of it, he said to me, he looked at me, he said, "You're a natural." Now, I suspect that is the same for an awful lot of the people that are actually viewing this video. So, what did he mean by that? Well, he'd been asking me about my life and trying to find out some bits about me and the way I do things, so that he could help us to formulate this ceremony. I was born in 1949, so at the time of recording this, I'm 75, so an old man. But throughout my childhood, and certainly in my younger years, I lived in a very rural area, and I had a dog. And one of my earliest memories, and I was probably no more than 6 or 7, I suppose, was sitting under a tree with my dog, feeling very comfortable in that situation. And it was fairly out of the way. It's not the sort of thing that is sort of normal in today's society, sadly. But I was there with my dog, and that's one of my earliest memories. And I got very interested in birds particularly, but also because birds, particularly the finch family, fed on plants. I learnt to identify plants. I learnt to identify trees. So I always had this very close interaction with the natural world. I always had this deep interest that only deepened as I got older, and I was able to buy a pair of binoculars and get the bird books and use my leisure time to go out into nature. So that was sort of the start of the whole aspect. Later on, I got very involved in mountaineering and rock climbing. Quite serious stuff: alpine climbing, snow and ice climbing in Scotland, general rock climbing, sea cliffs, those sort of things. But what really gave me the most satisfaction was having the skill set that I developed doing that enabled me to go off into really wild parts of Scandinavia, Scotland, Europe on my own. Because solitude and being out in the wild on my own was a really important thing for me. It was essential for my well-being. That's the way it felt. And that was what Paul picked up on. He picked up on the fact that I was an outdoor person, but there was no sense of dominating nature. There was no sense of conquering a mountain. There was no sense of conquering a rock face. It was always about actually enjoying the experience and engaging with the environment in its totality. So when I told Paul about my experiences and what I'd been up to throughout my life, and I was, how old was I? I was 62 at that particular age when I got hand fasted to Lynn. That's why he said to me, he said, "You're a natural." Basically, I had been engaging with the natural world around me in a very intimate and respectful way the whole of my life. It was just part of what I did. So is this ringing bells with you? What is your relationship? What is your relationship with the land where you live? What is your relationship with yourself? Prior to engaging with Druidry, I'd been a practicing Theravada Buddhist for about 25 years. A regular meditator, like every day, So it was pretty much part of my psyche. And when I was practicing as a Buddhist, going off into the wilderness was very much part of what I did, and I would go off on, and in fact they actually became solo retreats. I would go off into the wilds, a beach, or into a mountainous area or woodland, and just stay there for a period of time on my own. Really see how I was an integral part of that wonderful web of life. During those periods, I actually had a very powerful experience where I actually realised that at the core of myself and the core of you, that's the point. This isn't just my journey, this is also your journey. At the core of you, there is a seed of what I can only call the seed of love. Now, to try to explain the experience I had that brought me to that understanding is impossible. It's ineffable. You cannot explain the detail of that to anybody because it is only something that you can experience. But what it left me with this knowledge that actually what I project to you and what I present out to the world is not actually who I am. Who I am is something much more ordinary, but also much more special to everyday life. And as I've just said, that applies to you as well. No matter what your life is, no matter what your life experience is, no matter what you're getting up to at this moment in time, at the very root of your being, there is that sense of, as I say, it's so difficult to explain this, that core, that seed of love. As I've fallen in love with the land, because I am part of the land, I am part of the web of life, the same as you are part of the web of life, then in some ways I've fallen in love with myself. Now, the problem we have in Western society is narcissistic behaviour. And it sounds very narcissistic, but it's not about being a narcissist. It's about actually being able to accept yourself exactly as you are. It's about being who you are. And that's the potential for each of you. Everyone watching this, every click of the mouse, if you've got this far, you are actually very special. Because if you think the world is special, if you think the world is beautiful, if you look out of your window and see a dandelion in the pavement and am in awe for that, with that, if you do that, then you're part of that dandelion. You are part of that. Even the paving slabs themselves in an urban area, they're a gift of the earth. Everything comes from the earth. Everything is tied up in that web of life. And you are inextricably tied up in that web of life. And so this is how to be a Druid. How you're a Druid is simply to acknowledge the wonder, and that's the only word that sort of comes to mind for me, the wonder that is the web of life that we are part of, an intrinsic part of. So, how about it? How do you feel? How do you feel about this idea of, if you look out the window and you see the beauty around you, can you turn and look at yourself and see the beauty within you? When you look out the window, or you're out in the forest or by the beach or up a mountain or even on the city streets, and you see something that causes you to wonder and stop in wonder, a sunset, even if it's through a hazy city smog, those wonderful colours. Can you also accept the fact that you're part of that wonder and that in the same way you are wonderful? So, these are my thoughts. I'd be very interested if anyone wants to interact with me on this. Just leave a comment on the channel, and I'm more than happy to engage. In the meantime, thank you very much for listening to the rambling to this old man. I hope you found it intriguing and maybe a bit interesting. And if you did, then it'd be nice if you gave me a like. And if you'd like to, subscribe. But thank you. goodbye. Or as we say in Gaelic, cheery.